Erev Torah B'Tay. Tonight is Lag BaOmer, Chag Sameach. So let's talk a little bit about Rabbi Shimon, right? Our famous rabbi. That this Chag is for him, in his honor, right? That's the whole thing. So let's understand, right? What's going on with this? What happened over here? So there's a nice story, brought down on the Talmud about Rabbi Shimon. There's many stories, but this is like the main thing over here. What happened was, one day, Rabbi Shimon, and two of his friends were walking in the shuk, in the marketplace. So where was this? In Rome. Right? Rome. So they were walking, yeah. So what happened was that they, at that time, they were the rulers of the world. It was a superpower. So what happened was, that Rabbi Shimon, one of the rabbis commented, he said, oh, you see these Romans, he says, they built a beautiful shuk over here, beautiful shopping mall. Nice. The Romans, they know how to build shopping malls, right? You see them everywhere. We have over here also. They know how to build those things. So he said, right, you see, they built a beautiful shopping mall over here. Nice shuk. So he says, it's beautiful. We can use it also. It's good for us also. Baruch Hashem. Ishtabach Shemo. So Rabbi Shimon commented on this, He told him, he said, excuse me, what do you think? They built this for you, this shopping mall? No, they built it to bring over there their prostitutes over here, zonot, right? So they can do znut over here, and all kinds of averot, all kinds of things. This is what they bring it for. What do you think? They're bringing it for you, for the rabbis? No. They're bringing it for their own sins, for the averot that they want to do. That's the whole thing, right? So what happened was, in those days, the Romans, they had spies everywhere. So they knew what people were saying, So they found out about this. You understand? They found out that Rabbi Shimon said this, Oh, so they were like, oh, look at this guy, huh? He's being a chatzuf to us, chutzpah, huh? Talking chutzpah. So what happened? They started to look for him, to Rabbi Shimon, to arrest him. They probably wanted to kill him, God knows. Right? In those days, that's the way it was. They arrested you, they killed you, no problem, That's what happened. His Rav, right? Who was the rabbi of Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Akiva. He was killed by the Romans, just like that. Same thing. They would have killed him too. No problem, They sleep very well, after they kill, their victims. They have no problem. No conscience, no guilt, no nothing, They sleep very good. Just like today, we have here, these people, these gangsters, in New York City and everywhere else. They kill people, they don't even feel nothing, they go to sleep like nothing happened. They'll kill you for $1, for a quarter, they'll kill you. These people, these gangsters. That's the way it is, That's the way the Romans were, right? So what happened was, right, that they put out a arrest warrant, to get him, So he found out, about this. They told him, to Rabbi Shimon. So what did he do? He went to a certain shul, Bet Knesset, which was like out in the woods, Nobody knew where he was, So he sat there and learned Torah all day. That's what he did in order to escape from the Romans. So he was hiding out there for a while, like that. So they say that his wife, was bringing him food all the time, over there, so he could eat also, So nice, he's got Bet Midrash, he's learning Torah, he's got food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, it's all good. Shtabach Shema, right? But what happened was, then in the end, that's how it is, It's a cat and mouse game. So the Romans found out that he was there, So they were going to go get him also over there. So what happened? He had to run away to a different place, Rabbi Shimon. That's what happened. So this time, where did he go? He went to a cave, somewhere in the forest, somewhere, and over there, they couldn't find him so good, It was like a very remote area. How are you going to find somebody, There's 1,000 caves like this, all over. We're talking about Eretz Israel, right? There's a lot of caves over there, especially in the north. That's where they were, in the Galilee. That's where he's buried, Rabbi Shimon, right? In Meron, That's the same. All those places are like that, But lots of caves over there. So they went into one cave. So who went, right? Him and his son, Rabbi Elazar. Just them, those two, Nobody else went with them. And even his wife didn't know where they were. Why? Because if they would tell her, then the Romans are going to find out. Understand? So nobody knew where they were. Nobody. That's what it was, So now it's a different story. Why? because the wife can't bring them, lunch and dinner, and this and she doesn't even know where they are. That's the thing. So what happened? Kadosh Baruch Hu made a nest for them over there, that they were able to stay there for 12 years. Can you imagine? No food, no nothing, no supplies, no deliveries, no bathing, no clothing, nothing. 12 years, nothing. How did they live like that? What happened over there, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu made a nest for them. So what did they do? They say in the Talmud that they dug up the ground over there in that cave, and they put their bodies inside, naked inside the ground, and they put the dust back, right? So they were like up to their head with the dirt. This is how they were living. Can you imagine? This is crazy, huh? Today we look at this and we say, "What? What are you talking?" What kind of thing is this? So. Why did they do it this way? To put their bodies in the ground. This way, they don't need to take a bath. They don't need to to put clothing. They don't need new clothing and laundry and all. What laundry? Which laundry? What laundry are you gonna have over there? You understand? That's what they did. Can you imagine? This is what these people were. Such holy kadosh people. Rabbi Shimon and his son. So what happened was, what were they doing over there? They were learning Torah day and night, nothing else. That's it, right? Limud Torah, Talmud Torah can't get kulam. All they did was learn Torah, right? So 12 years like this. Can you imagine such a thing like this? Mamash, Nes, right? This is like a Nes. It's a Nes Gamur. So what happened was, right, that at that point, they stayed there for 12 years, and they went up, their spiritual level went up a great deal over there, because all they did was learn Torah all day, nothing else, nothing. What were they eating over there, So they say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, made like a special tree for them, with some fruits over there, and they were eating those fruits, carobs, right? That's what they were eating, and they had some like little water over there, and some spring going on there, so they were drinking the water, and that was it. That's all they had, fruit and water. That's all they lived on, right? For 12 years like this. This was their food. So what happened was that they went up, to a very high level in the Torah, like super, super high. They say, right, that there's a story, it says in the Talmud, that Rabbi Shimon had a father-in-law, right? You know what his name was? Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. This was the father-in-law of Rabbi Shimon, He was married to his daughter. So what happened was that when Rabbi Shimon, they say, came out of the cave at the end, he came out. So they say that Rabbi Pinchas saw him, his father-in-law. So he tells him, he says, Oy li, shani roeh otcha kacha. He says, Oy vavoy, that I see you like this. Look what you look like. You look like a mess. Oh my God. So why did he tell him that? You know why? Because his body, because he was buried in the ground, was full of scabs. So he looked terrible, like physically disgusting. So Rabbi Pinchas was in shock, when he saw, oh my God, I can't believe I see you like this. So what happened? Because of this, right, Rabbi Shimon told him, he says, Oy li, right, if you wouldn't see me like this. He told him like this. This is what he answered him. What does that mean? He told him, if you wouldn't see me like this, woe is to me. Why? It's because he says, I went up to a high level, of Torah over there in the cave, that nobody else went to this level, because I was sitting there with doing nothing all day but learning Torah. So he says, if you wouldn't see me like this, I wouldn't have the Torah that I have now. Oily, it would be woe to me. That's what I told him. So they say, the Chazal, or in the Talmud, they say something, about this. They say that when Rabbi Shimon went into the cave, listen to this, he wasn't the greatest rabbi of a generation. There were bigger guys than him. There were bigger people at that generation. But once he went into the cave and he stayed there, for so many years, now he became greater than all of them. He had more Torah than everybody else. Why? Because he sat there, for 12 years like this. So they say, right, the Chazal, what happened was that he came out of the cave, after 12 years. Hashem told him, he said, okay, now you can leave. They're not looking for you anymore, the Romans. They canceled the decree, right? The term limits went expired for the crime. That's it, right? So they said, "Oh, okay, we can go. Yeah, you can go. That's it, right?" So what did they do? They came out of the ground, right, and they left. They went outside. So, so they say, right, that what happened? They went outside over there. The first thing they saw, was two people. They saw two people there. Two Jews. What were they doing, these Jews? They were working, labor, like they were farmers, so they were tilling the ground, plowing the ground, this kind of stuff. So Rabbi Shimon looked at this, and his son, Rabbi Elazar, these two people. They looked at them and they said, what are these people? They're crazy, these people. Why? Because they have the Torah, and they're sitting here doing labor? They should be studying Torah. So what did they do? They looked at them with their eyes, and killed them, both of them. They both died, because they were such on a high level, they couldn't understand how anybody, can sit and work and labor, They couldn't understand such a thing like that. So you know what happened, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu saw this, that they were killing people like this. So you know what he told them? He said, go back to the cave. If you go out there, you're going to kill everybody. That's what Hashem told them, So therefore, they went back to the cave another year. They stayed there. Because Hashem told them, you guys are dangerous. What do you want to do? Kill all my people? You're crazy. This is crazy. So they went, stayed another year. That's what happened. In the end, they came out. That's what happened. So then Rabbi Shimon, so what's the point over here, right? What is Lag BaOmer? It's not the birthday of Rabbi Shimon. He wasn't born on Lag BaOmer. That's not what it is. It says Yortzeit, according to some poskim, right? Some Mefarshim, they say that that's the day they died. He passed away on Lag BaOmer. But usually, we say, okay, if somebody passed away, Yortzeit, it's a sad day, So then why do we make a holiday out of this thing? Why make a holiday? It's a sad day, Yortzeit. What are you so happy about? So the joy is that what? Because Rabbi Shimon was able to sit there, in the cave for 13 years, all the Kabbalah, he revealed a lot of new secrets that were lost because we lost them, and a lot of things also new things. So therefore, what he did was he brought back the Kabbalah in its full force, Rabbi Shimon, and this is the reason why we celebrate, because in the zechut that he sat there in the cave for 12 years like this, probably Eliyahu Navi was coming there and teaching them, the Kabbalah, right? This is usually what happens with people like this, So they were learning Kabbalah from Eliyahu Navi, whatever, right? All these things, and that's how they became so great, Rabbi Shimon and his son Rabbi Elazar, they became such a high level, and because of that, what happened was afterwards they wrote the Zohar Kadosh, right? And we have, by the way, the Zohar. It was lost for a while, by the way. For many hundred years it was lost, and then it reappeared. And what happened was, that all the Kabbalah that we have comes from there, from the Zohar Kadosh. Everything is from there. Who wrote these? This was Rabbi Shimon and his Talmidim. The Talmidim of Rabbi Shimon and his Chabura, the people that were together with him. They're the ones who wrote the Zohar Kadosh. So this is why we have it. Otherwise we wouldn't have this book, and we wouldn't really know much about Kabbalah. That's how we get everything from there. Tell you something interesting. There was one rabbi over here, I don't want to mention his name, but in the Queens over here, right? And he said, sometimes he was giving his Divrei Torah, to his community. I was there, So what did he say? He said, the Arizal, who was 500 years ago, the great Mekubal. He said, the Arizal was bigger than all the Tanaim, like all the Tanaim of the older generations, And I looked at him, I said, I'm sorry. When he finished the Divrei Torah, I told him, I said, are you crazy? The Tanaim were much greater, than the Arizal. How can you compare, right? Somebody who's a Tana, from 2,000 years ago, somebody 500 years ago. You can't compare one to the other. One is Tana Kadosh, one is Acharon, one of the Achronim. I told him, I said, you lost your mind. Your screws are loose, I told him. What are you talking about? Who told you this kind of thing? Arizal was greater than the Tanaim. The Tanaim, whatever they had, Arizal didn't have one drop in the bucket, whatever they had. That's how great they were, the Tanaim, So Rabbi Shimon was the greatest of all of them in terms of the Kabbalah. He was the greatest. Nobody was like him, So this is the thing with Rabbi Shimon, He was able to bring back the Kabbalah because a lot of it was lost. Right? That's the thing. How was it lost, by the way? Because they didn't, it says in the Mishnah, the reason why we lost a lot of the Torah that we don't have anymore today is because the Talmidim were not meshamesh the rabbi properly, they didn't sit with them long enough time and serve them, to learn all their Torah. So this is what happened, it says in the Zohar Kadosh, I'll finish over here. It says in the Zohar Kadosh, very interesting story, They say Rabbi Eliezer, right, who was the greatest, rabbi of the Tanaim, one of the greatest over there. In his generation, he was the greatest. He was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of Rabbi Shimon. Right? So it came from there, this whole Masoret that we have. So the thing is that Rabbi Eliezer Agadol, right? What happened was that on the day that he was dying, he was sick, So the Tanaim, the rabbis came to visit him. They came to visit him on the last day of his death, to say goodbye. So what happened was that he looked at them, and he was very angry at them, Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Because they weren't coming to learn Torah from him. All the Torah that he had. He had a lot of Kabbalah, Sodot, that they didn't know. Also Halachot that he knew, that they didn't know. So they were not coming. So he was angry at them, And he said to them, why didn't you come to learn Torah from me all these years? I'm sitting here alone by myself. This is what he told them, So they all got got scared, when they heard this, So what happened, right? He cursed them. Because he said, you didn't come to learn my Torah. Now all the Torah, when I die, is going to be lost. Nobody knows this Torah. It's lost. So then he went to Rabbi Akiva, he pointed to him. He looked at him and he said, Akiva, he said, why didn't you come to learn with me all this time, all these years? He told him, particularly, why is this? Why? Because Rabbi Akiva was the biggest genius over there, the biggest Gaon, So he could have learned the Torah, Rabbi Eliezer, more faster than anybody else. He was a big Gaon, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Akiva. He had a big head, Big one. So what happened was, he told him, he says, where were you all these years? You didn't come. Now the Torah is lost. So Rabbi Akiva told him, he says, I'm sorry, he says, my Rebbe, he says, I was too busy, teaching my Talmidim in the yeshiva, That's why I didn't come. So Rabbi Eliezer told him, you no good. He cursed him. He says, you're going to die a mita meshuna. You know what that means? A strange death. That's what happened, right? The Romans killed him with a strange death. They combed his skin out, right, with the combs of iron. So he cursed him. Why? Because he told him, because of you, now the Torah is lost. So what happened was that Rabbi Akiva told him like this, when he heard this, He told him, he says, okay, Rebbe, he says, you know what? Whatever you can teach me today, before you die, teach me now. Let's go, Let's get started. I'm here. I'm here for you. Teach me whatever you want to teach me. So they say, in the Zohar Kadosh, they taught him that day many sodot, I think many things in Kabbalah. Shir HaShirim, we read, right, every Erev Shabbat, right? But Shir HaShirim is not just a song. There's Kabbalah over there. There's sodot also over there, you understand? So he taught him all the Kabbalah of Shir HaShirim. And also many other things. And also many other halachot he taught him that day, But the problem was, there was the last day. There wasn't enough time to learn everything. You understand? This was the thing, So therefore, what happened was that in the end, it got lost, a lot of it. So Rabbi Shimon came, who was a Talmid of Rabbi Akiva, and he brought back the Kabbalah, whatever was lost. And also many other things as well. So he had a big zechut, Rabbi Shimon, that he brought everything back. Whatever was lost over the generations, because the Talmidim were not learning with the rabbi properly. They were not absorbing their Torah properly. This is what happened, So in the end, Rabbi Shimon got it back, So we were very happy about that. So you know what it says right over there in the Zohar Kadosh? It says, until Mashiach comes, there won't be a generation like Rabbi Shimon, with so much chokhmah, so much Kabbalah like there was in that time. There was so much chokhmah there, so much Kabbalah, even a little child, 5-year-old child, like, Rabbi Yonatan's son, right? Can you imagine? Like somebody like this, he was coming into giving shurim in Kabbalah in the time of Rabbi Shimon. This is what it was. It was a very special generation, So that's why these fools, they say, the Arizal, compare Arizal to Rabbi Shimon. How can you compare? It says in the Zohar Kadosh, until Mashiach comes, there won't be anything like that anymore. Nothing. There won't be any generation like that anymore. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chanan Tov Shomer, Tzik Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zikot Yisrael, Lefi Chachir Ba Lehem Torah Mitzvot, Shonem Adonai Chafetz, Leman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadil.